Hey girl, Marissa here. You are listening to the Codependent Dummy podcast. As a young woman, you have been raised, reinforced, and rewarded for putting the needs of others above your own. Now, in your 20s, you're finding yourself exhausted, exasperated, and enveloped in shit relationships, especially the one you have with yourself. Codependency is a way of being where we put the feelings, wants, and needs of others above our own in an unconscious attempt to meet our own feelings, wants, and needs. Sorry to break it to you, sis, but that is not sustainable. This podcast is to help you undo all that so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. Let's get to it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Codependent podcast. Today, I'm with Kelli Younglove. She is a consciousness coach who teaches her clients a kinder, gentler way to work with their anxiety so they can silence the voice of the harsh inner critic, release stress, and show up in their lives as their happy, confident self. She also is the creator of the Boundary course, Creating the Container of You, a self-study e-course that teaches boundary fundamentals for people pleasers and controllers. Kelli, thank you for coming back to the podcast.
Marissa, thank you for having me back. Even though I'm a little bit sniffly today, a little bit croaky today, it's so good to see you again, and it's so good to be back here with your listeners.
You too.
Mm.
All right, so when you were first on, I'll read you, this is your definition of codependency, and I want to have you potentially expand on it, or you can just say
Okay.
same thing.
Thanks. Thank you.
So you said, I have a couple ways to define it. It's an attempt to overcome feelings of unworthiness and low self-esteem. It's being over-involved in people's lives and being a people pleaser or a controller in an unconscious manner to control others' opinions of you because you're not okay without it. So anything to expand on your definition of codependency this time around?
Yeah, thank you so much for reminding me. I remember too, just talking about, that hit of approval that being a people pleaser, I would really need that hit of approval. And just even thinking about it now, I can kind of feel it in my body, that warm rush of relief. Um, ooh, they think I'm okay. They're not going to get rid of me. So, ooh, okay, I'm all right. I'm safe. But I also feel the unstable nature of that approval, because anything out there is so fickle. There's so many variables then that I don't have any control over. So, when that approval wears off, and it's going to, then I'm going to be left with that insecure, scared self. And if I don't know how to work with that part of myself, then I'm going to need to control or use some kind of strategy to get that approval flowing my way again. And so, yeah, I came across another definition of codependency that I think sums it up really nicely. Um, and it really lit up for me, but I can't remember where I read it, so I can't give credit where credit is due. So codependency is an unconscious attempt to heal childhood pain. And it shows up as a compulsion to please or care for or control, like we were saying, another person, just as a way to cope with those really uncomfortable or painful feelings of not being enough or low self-esteem. And I can raise my hand to all of the above, which is why we're here.
Yeah. An unconscious attempt to heal childhood pain.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
that lit up for me because that was true for me. And I know that there's so many different definitions of codependency, but one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about it today was just because I recognize that it had such a the temple bell for me.
Mhm. And yeah, I agree with you, Kelly. I wonder, like, what are your thoughts on, right, like the term childhood pain? I think in my experience, I was not abused, I was
Mm,
not neglected, right? Like big T trauma was not present throughout my childhood, thankfully. Thank you, mom and dad.
mm,
And
mm,
also at the same time, I grew up to be a very codependent young woman because there was childhood pain. Um, but yeah, what are your thoughts on, sometimes I think people might hear that and think the same thing, like, well, nothing that bad happened to me, so am I just crazy?
thank you. That is such a
Mhm.
good one. So good. I think what we forget is as children, and again, I'll bring it back to myself as kids, when we're 4 and we're 5, we really don't have a huge understanding and of the world and the complexity of things. And so we often misinterpret things the way an aunt looked at us, somebody who was maybe having a bad day, but was really harsh with us. And we interpret that and internalize it and make it mean something. And the
Mhm.
adults never even knew. Adults who loved us and who would have given their life for us didn't even realize where a comment, um, landed the wrong way with a child, and they made it mean something. So a lot of our wounding comes from just being small and in an overwhelming world, trying
Right.
to make sense of it often by ourselves. And then saying, oh, like I'll give you a great example. I got the idea that I was supposed to know everything because sometimes people were very impatient with me. I didn't know how to do something. They were, oh, let me do that. And so the interpretation is, I'm a dummy because I obviously, they're mad at me. I was supposed to know that. And, you know, that doesn't even have to be a parent. That can be just another adult or even an older child. And so then these stories get started when we're really young. And if we don't interrupt those stories, they can really build into an identity, a false identity. So that's where it really started for me. And I notice with other people I talk to, and like yourself, thank you for sharing your story. I think that's really helpful.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think it's important because then either if I hear childhood pain, I'm like, okay, let me think really hard about what my parents did to fuck me up, right? And like maybe they didn't.
Yes. Yeah.
Or yeah, I think that something's wrong with me because things, for the most part went fairly well, and yet I still ended up how I did. And so, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, right? Misinterpreting. Oh my gosh. Like, my grandma made a comment one time about my big cheeks. And I do. I have like cute, like I
Cute,
just have a certain
cute.
type of cheek. And fast forward, like my husband, he is obsessed with my cheeks because he gets to kiss them. And he's just like,
Oh.
he loves my cheeks. But yeah, for years, I thought, how mean of my grandma.
Mm.
And she's not only saying something about my cheeks, she's saying something about my weight in general, like my appearance.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's just a mean old lady who's critical and right, all these. And she was just commenting on my cheeks. And I don't think she meant whatever I interpreted it
Mm.
as.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I agree that, yeah, being so little, trying to make sense of this big world, yeah, a lot of wounding can happen. Mhm.
Especially if, I get the sense that like me, you're a sensitive person. That's probably why you're doing what you do. You really have such a sensitive nature and a big heart, which is why you want to help others. And that's certainly why I'm doing what I'm doing too. And so, really sensitive children can, I don't, I think maybe sometimes all children are probably sensitive in their own way, right? But again, just speaking for myself, it was my wiring and my personality and my makeup that maybe, what wouldn't affect my sister maybe affected me. So
Right.
it's all of those things. And this is why I love we're here, digging
Mhm.
into it and shedding light on this to make it easier and also to maybe even let some people off the hook a little bit too, because I know parents are get really sad or nervous that they're going to be left holding the bag for everything. And sometimes it's helpful to remember that there's many different influences that are happening with a child. So it's not all.
Mm-hmm.
No.
No, it's not. All right. Well, the last time you were on, you did share about a personal experience of
Mm,
codependency.
hmm.
This friendship that ended in a blow up.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you have another experience or relationship in your life
Mm,
um, related to
yeah.
codependency that you can share with us?
Yes. Should I just do a quick recap on that? And then I
Yeah.
can, okay, love that. Yeah, so the last time I was here, I really focused on, the people pleasing aspect of my codependent behavior. And so I'll just, for the benefit of your listeners and viewers this time around, I was raised in a really strict religious community. And I was raised from an early age to put others before me and to be really pleasing and really to be selfless. And that set me up for my first codependent friendship at the age of 9 when I became best friends with Elizabeth. Elizabeth actually had a sense of self and she had a really strong personality, which is why I gravitated toward her because I did not feel strong.
Mm,
Um, and over time, I began to become so afraid of her disapproval, her rejection, her criticism, that I began to suppress my own preferences, my own needs, really my truth, just to get along. And instead of getting to know me, because I was such a tender age, instead of getting to know me, and really developing true self-esteem from the inside out, I became preoccupied with what Elizabeth thought instead of what I thought. And she eventually became a replacement for my authentic self. But that people-pleasing behavior comes with a flip side, and that's often a very controlling side.
mhm,
And that showed up in my romantic relationships, not really so much my friendships. I got my first boyfriend when I was 15, and he really cared about me and he cared about my opinion. And he wanted to please me. And that was the first time I had felt any kind of power in a relationship. Now, that was a wrong interpretation, but I didn't know that at the time. All I knew was
mhm,
it felt good and it felt a lot better than being the underdog. So I became the one, I sort of flipped and became the one who started making all the rules. And I carried that behavior into my 20s. So by that time in my 20s, I had a serious boyfriend. We were living together, and I didn't want him to go out with his friends. I didn't want him to do anything without me. At a deeper level, to be honest, I was afraid he'd meet someone else and leave me. And I
mhm,
didn't have that inner sense of self or core of strength to really be able to withstand that kind of reality.
right.
So, he was my safety, he was my security, he was my everything. So I just started to really tighten my grip on him. And
Mhm,
oh, Marissa. I had so many wrong ideas about love. I thought he was supposed to meet all my needs. I thought he was supposed to make me happy. I thought we were supposed to do everything together. And I thought I could demand that of him. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was my right to demand that. And so I began to use all those tools of control that had been used on me when I was growing up. So things like guilt, um, silent treatment,
Mm-hmm.
uh, emotional blackmail, punishment, threats. And at the very worst of it, when my fear of abandonment or not enoughness was triggered, I would use these big displays of anger that led to some really intense, really unhappy moments that I'm not very proud of. And to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, it was easier for me to be here last time talking to you about being a people pleaser because that almost seems more virtuous in a way. I was the victim
Right.
of Elizabeth, and I wasn't the bully. Not saying that she was, okay. I don't want to put any blame on her at all, actually. She was a 9-year-old girl just like myself. But I'm just saying that, you know, um, it's harder for me to sit here and tell you about the controlling aspect of
Right.
my codependency. But those two roles, right? The victim and the bully, they're so closely related. They're really two sides of the same coin. Um, and whether we're talking about the bird with the broken wing and the rescuer, or the host and the parasite, or avoidant pursuer, these two roles are really suffering from similar or even the same wounds, and they're just drawn together again and again in this
Right.
really unhappy tango. And that's, I love the work that you're doing because you're educating people so that they can recognize the dance and get out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, I acknowledge it's harder to talk about, and also
Mm.
I do appreciate Kelly you acknowledging because yeah, I've done the same things. I have been the victim and the people pleaser, the one who sacrificed more, who gave
Mm.
more,
Hmm.
and at the same time, yeah, potentially in that same relationship or yeah, similar to you, like maybe I was people pleasing more with friends and controlling with partners. But yeah, the guilt, the silent treatment, the ultimatums,
Oh, ultimatums. Yes, that's a good one. Yeah.
the right, demanding reciprocity even if it wasn't necessarily possible, like but like yeah, I would do all these things for someone and then they had a debt to pay. There was a debt to be paid and it might not be paid,
Mhm.
but I would demand and cry and beg and plead and manipulate for it. And so yeah, I think um yeah, there are so many like patterns underneath the umbrella of codependency. It's just that yeah, the controlling part is more covert because we can't be controlling. We have to be flexible and, like you said, virtuous and pleasing. But um, but underneath that, there's an attempt to control. So sometimes we just actually control.
Yeah, I think a lot of mine was, I was even hiding that it was control from myself. I didn't even realize that it was, even my people pleasing and my niceness was also trying to control their opinion of me. But then I would go into this very, full blown, so again, I think I even mentioned this last time where that's what the exploding doormat syndrome really is going
Mm-hmm.
from nice, 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 sweet, 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 all of a sudden to this explosion. But it's really because these two are really extremes and no one had taught me, this is an either or thing, and no one had taught me that there was another option instead of just these two. and I didn't have any infrastructure or any skills yet to be able to notice when I was feeling overwhelmed or needed support. And I would go right into those controlling strategies. So there was a
Mm.
lot of education that I needed to get before I was
Mhm.
able to get really healthy.
Yeah. And um, is there like a quintessential controlling moment that comes to mind?
There's so many. But I'm here to share everything because I think it can be helpful. Um, I think, and this is most controllers, I'll give you an example. So Christmas, I'm going to make it fantastic. Now, this is an old version of me, and I actually had clients who have done the exact same thing. So I'm not alone here, where I'm going to make Christmas my idea of Christmas, and everyone else is going to be, the players in my play. They're going to be the actors in my play. So they're going to follow my script. This is what's going to happen. So it's like, okay, everybody, we're going out looking at Christmas lights. And so it's not everybody who was sitting and enjoying maybe a conversation or a hot cocoa or being cozy inside or, doing a puzzle with someone. Nope, we're going to go do this because this is my vision. And so everybody, has to trudge outside, go look at Christmas lights or hop in the car or whatever it is. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to go caroling. Um, and so these were typical of my controlling behavior. We're going to be doing this because this is my vision, and I get to say, because I'm the one who makes the rules, and it's really relating to others as if they're children and you're the parent.
Mm-hmm.
um, and and so you know what we're supposed to be doing, the the healthy way, is to say, hey, I'm going to go look at Christmas lights because that's something I really want to do. Who would like to come with me? And giving people the emotional permission to be separate from you and to have the freedom to make their own choices that feel right for them and to take care of their own needs in a way that feels good to them, without guilting them or trying to control them. So it was a journey for me to even be able to see my controlling ways, mostly even when it came out in anger. If I felt I was in the right, if my boyfriend had stayed out drinking till 2 o'clock in the morning, I had ideas about that. I felt I had the right to scream and yell and throw a tantrum in an attempt to correct his behavior and make him so terrified that he would never do it again. So I just was not even aware, of the all of the ways that it was showing up in my life.
Mm-hmm. I have the right to. So we we don't have the right to.
To be separate.
No, like you're saying, like I have the right to be mad right now.
Oh, I see. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Um,
So, like
I
in
felt I had
general.
the right. Yeah, I had the right to be angry, and I had the right to punish them because I was in the right. It didn't occur
Mm-hmm.
to me. I had not been taught yet to maybe check in that I was telling a story about them in my head, that I actually needed to share that with them and to check where I was right and where I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that maybe, and I found out, just how wrong I was when I started actually using some of these healthy communication tools. Um, and people would correct me as to, well, he was out actually 2 o'clock in the morning because his sister had come into town that he never gets to see very often. That there was reasons that I wasn't even curious about.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't checking in with him. So I don't know, was that enough, or do you need some more examples of my?
No,
of
oh, that was enough. But I just, yeah, this perspective, because I think in my codependency, again, like when I was more controlling, yeah, I think I had expectations, influenced by, society, culture, family. And yeah,
right.
I think I would argue the same thing, like, well, I have a right to be mad. And yeah, I'm just like, I'm curious, we don't have a right, or it's not about having or not having a right.
Oh, okay.
Like,
You're good. Yes. Okay. I get it. I get it. I get where you're going. You're going somewhere really juicy. Yay. So, if we're talking about boundaries now within a relationship, remember those relationships are created together in a way that serves both of us. So, we're going to need to create guidelines, and even you can even call them rules that we negotiate together. So, what I was doing is I was entering into a relationship with a really strict rule book,
mm,
even though when I left home, I left the religion, but I kept a lot of that. A lot of it was ingrained in me. So I show up in a relationship with my own rule book that I'm imposing onto the relationship without ever checking in to see what his needs are or what his way of living wants to be.
mm,
So when we're creating a relationship or a container together, it must be negotiated. So
right,
if we're honest about, hey, this is what I want for a relationship, how about you? So we start, saying some agreements, then of course we always have the right to our feelings. But
mm,
a lot of times our feelings or our anger is coming up because there's a story in place or
right,
something needs to be renegotiated or another conversation has to be had.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, I love that you stayed with that long enough to get to the juicy gem. um, we have the right to the way we feel. I just notice that a lot of times the way I'm feeling isn't really because of what they're doing, but because of what I'm projecting onto them
right,
or what I think is right and what I think is wrong, but I haven't checked in with my partner to find out more information. And so this is where we get into the beauty of boundaries within a relationship is we get to tweak it and we get to refine it. We get to see where it's not working and we get to find out why instead of immediately going into onto, attack or trying to control another person's behavior so we'll feel safe.
right,
So there's a lot to this. I really am showing up here as a student, and I know we've said this before, this work is for life. We're going to constantly be learning. This is what I love about what you're doing
mm,
is that you're offering a community and a place where we can have these conversations and we can keep learning from each other.
right. Mm-hmm. Amen. All right. Well, how did you get out of the dynamic, right, codependent dance of
Mm.
people pleaser versus controller?
Oh, yeah, that unhappy dance. Okay. Therapy, coaching, a lot of boundary education, and a lot of hard work. But I'm going to be
Mm,
honest with you, I would have never done any of that if the wrecking ball of life hadn't have kept swinging again and again to wake me up. I
mm,
went through one painful breakup after another before I was actually ready and able to admit that maybe I was part of the problem.
right,
And I did find a therapist and she confirmed it. Yep, it's not about them. It's really about, it's about me and the inner wounds I needed to heal and the skills I needed to learn in order to become a healthy adult. So, you can imagine, well, let's get back to this. Just I think this needs to be really stated. it was the
Mm.
pain of the drama. It was the pain of losing people I really loved that drove me to seek answers.
Right.
And, and I found them. My therapist and I, we jumped right into the work, into the recovery work. So love addiction and codependency and trauma recovery, that was important for me. That's not for everybody, obviously. Um, and, I had a full-blown awakening. No
Wow.
wonder I hadn't been able to experience mature intimacy and mature love. I wasn't mature. I was,
Mhm.
showing up in all of those relationships as a wounded child and not a healthy adult. I
Right.
was trying to enmesh with all my partners. And as you well know, enmeshment is not love. So I wanted them to fill that empty void inside of myself. I wanted them to match my fantasy of love that I had created in childhood. I didn't want them to be them. I
Mhm.
wanted them to give up their identity and give it to me to make up for, I guess, the adult self I hadn't yet developed into.
Mhm.
Um, and, what a surprise to find out that boundaries are a key component to healing all of that. And then, big shocker, that I didn't have any, I was basically boundary illiterate,
Mm.
which is not exactly true. I mean, I understood the physical aspects of boundaries, and I think most people do. You can't just run up and grab my purse or any of my body parts. I knew that wasn't okay, and I would have done something about it. But I had no idea, just how important inner boundaries were, to be able to have a real relationship with myself and then with
Mhm.
other people. So it was
Mhm.
all of that. It was, you know, a true motivation to change, and then getting the right support, getting an education, and then, to be honest, the willingness to feel the discomfort of doing the work, because
Mm.
some discomfort to this.
Right. It's that irony of life or healing because there's discomfort to this, and also there's so much discomfort being codependent.
I
Right. So
know.
it's just what kind of discomfort do you want? And then yeah, that's like where the consciousness comes in because you actually choose, okay, I'll do the
Mhm.
healing one. Fine. I'll
Yeah,
draw this boundary, or fine, I'll build a relationship with myself.
yeah.
Um yeah. But yeah, it is hard. And at the same time, it's hard being codependent. It's hard.
It's so much harder. It's
There you
so
go.
much harder. And um, I want to be here as the poster child for this. I really, really want people to hear me, that I felt, oh, okay, this is just the wrong relationship for me. Okay, I'll find Mr. Right. And so, relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship. Now, I'm happy for all of that wonderful experience with all of those amazing people. But I'm telling you that it's so much harder being in, yeah, codependent, than to do the necessary work. Becoming a healthy adult, being someone that can take care of myself and soothe myself and ask for help when I need it and create loving and healthy relationships. It has improved every area of my life, including my health, although you wouldn't be able to tell from me today. But I used to be sick all the time.
Mm.
And that was more of a defense instead of proper boundaries. So, yes, I'm I'm with you on this. It's worth
Mhm.
it's worth all of the work, all of the
Yeah.
effort.
Yeah. All right. Well, you've started to hint at this. So to expand more, Kelly, where
Mm.
do you think unhealthy boundaries originate from?
Yeah, thank you for asking me that. I think in order to answer this question, because I can go in so many different directions, so I think what I'm going to do is just start. We have to go right back to the beginning, to basically the human struggle for survival. which
Mm.
really then became a struggle for power. And thankfully, there was humans in the past that understood the true power of creativity and collaboration instead of just domination. But our history is filled with monarchies and dictatorships and totalitarian rule. So there's this pervasive idea that power is power over another. And
Mhm.
that hurts us all because it creates division and it creates those not just unhealthy boundaries, but those unhealthy roles. Because
Right.
one, we've got master, servant, lord, serf, um, bully, victim, winner, loser. One role is superior and one is inferior.
Mm.
And so I remember how appalled I was, Marissa, when I, was really doing a lot of research and reading up on this. And I was reading about the divine right of kings, which is this political position from the past that said kings couldn't be questioned or held accountable for their actions because their authority came from God.
Mm.
And, this idea spread like parents started to copy this governing style with their children. So children
Mm.
were property, they didn't have any rights. They had to, honor and love their parents no matter what was done to them. And I witnessed a little bit of this in the community that I was raised in,
Mm.
this authoritarian kind of parenting.
Right.
And I saw, the punishment that comes along with it, harsh punishment that has nothing to do with curiosity or guidance or helping the child learn. Um, you know, it was more to do with control and domination of spirit. So really, that's where those two roles really originated in me, is because that was the only option I was presented with. You could be the one in control who made all the rules and enforced them, or you could be the one who obeyed them in order to stay safe and to get love
Mm.
and to get food in your tummy.
Right.
And so for many years, I flipped between those two roles, um, depending on the situation I was in, because that's the only thing that had been modeled to me. But
Mhm.
it's really important to know, or at least it was important for me to understand, that these two roles are really just two different survival strategies. And they originate from our survivor brain. But we were never meant to just operate out of survivor brain. We have a higher functioning brain and we have access to higher thinking and to higher abilities like creativity and curiosity and compassion and empathy and intuition and an ability to connect to something much bigger than ourselves. I mean, that's our
Mhm.
true source of power. And I think that when we start understanding that and making the switch, from fear over to higher awareness,
Right.
then we learn new, healthier, better, more intelligent ways to relate, not just to ourselves, but to others and to life. And that's what you're about. It's what I'm about. That's why we're here having this
Mm.
wonderful conversation. So yeah, unhealthy boundaries just have come out of a, a place where people were desperate to survive, but we're meant for much more. That's why we're here. We're here to evolve beyond that. I know it's possible because I am learning how to relate to people, not from a one up position, not from one down, but from
Mm.
have equal value.
Right.
Even though we might have different belief systems, I can use that ability, higher ability, to get curious, to listen, to observe, and then we can start to collaborate. I think that
Mhm.
it's made such a difference in my life, and I think that we're going to need to learn this going forward as just as a species, actually.
Right. So rather than operating from, right, a struggle for survival, a struggle
Mm.
for power, it's a struggle for equanimity.
Mm.
Yeah, I wonder, like, or yeah, is it not even a struggle? Is it just um non-struggle for equanimity? Yeah, like what are you shifting towards? Like, how would you phrase that?
That's a good question. You know, I don't want to give the idea that, I mean, there's certain people that I know don't feel good to me, and so I'll move away, but I am not trying to destroy them. I'm starting to learn or want to get curious about what I might learn from them. Sometimes what I learn from them is you're dangerous and I need to move away.
Mm,
I'm not saying that we also don't have the right to defend ourselves. You know, we've got teeth and claws for a reason. But I do believe that what I have needed to learn is that everyone has value and they may be different from me. It does not mean that I need to, again, um, be friends with everyone or be in a relationship with everyone. But I think I think that instead of over or just under, what we're looking for is interpersonal, maybe. I don't know.
mhm,
Um, Interpersonal, meaning understanding the value of human life, understanding the value of life, not just human. Um, I'm sure that there probably is a better way to phrase it that's not coming to me, but that's okay. I bet you some of your listeners know the answer to that. The
mhm,
point is for us to have, or again, for me to have the desire to find out a better way of living.
mhm. Yeah. And I think it's hard to sometimes articulate what, yeah, isn't in the zeitgeist necessarily. Like, you're working towards it, you're cultivating something.
I think
Yeah.
I think we are.
Mhm.
And I also want people to know, because I needed to know, I have the right to not want to be around certain people. You know, we were talking about that last time too, just energetically. There's some people that feel too intense for me at sometimes, at some moments, or there's certain things that, don't light up for me. And all of that is okay. But well, I'm not trying to wipe anybody off the face of the earth because they're different from me. But I am, yeah, I'm finding my own containers and the people that I choose to be, or sometimes we don't even get a choice. Sometimes, if we're in a work situation or we're in a family situation, we get put together with people, finding ways to collaborate, to create something together, to
Mhm.
find, where they have gifts and where I have gifts and where we can make that work. And usually that's what makes the best team is people who are very different from each other and have different gifts to share.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm curious how, from all this learning, right? Therapy, coaching, study of boundaries.
Mhm.
Um, is that where your boundary course came about? And yeah, how was it to actually bring it into fruition?
Oh, yeah, this is thank you, thank you. So the seeds for the boundary course were actually planted back in 2002. Um,
Wow.
my brother got me my very first book on boundaries. He was majoring in psychology at the time, and he recognized the unhealthy dynamics in our family, but also
Mhm.
in the new family that I just married into. And just to give you a quick snapshot, on the outside, I had everything that I had ever wanted. But on the inside, I was really just riddled with anxiety. I was still best friends with Elizabeth. We were 26 years in by that point. I didn't
Mhm.
see any way of getting out. On top of that, I had a new mother-in-law who was really involved in our lives, had a lot of expectations of me. I had unhealed trauma that I was hiding from myself and from my husband. So when I read that book on boundaries and realized that having healthy boundaries really meant sharing my truth with others and asking, for help or telling people what my needs or preference were, I really panicked. I mean, that I felt like I was going to be forced to kick the hornet's nest. So I just closed that book, put it away, and I didn't look at it or think about it again until that beautiful wrecking ball swung again, and it swung hard, and it completely demolished my marriage. And I really think that that's the day, in me anyway, that the boundary course started, because finally I recognized the wrecking ball for what it was. And I was ready. And I said, okay, I'm listening. I'm ready. And as you know, I went to work, got therapy, and the topic of boundaries kept coming up, but it was so high level, or just pieces, or it was so overwhelming to me. And it was almost like I was getting steps 10 to 20 instead of steps 1 to 3. I really needed one of those books, Boundaries for Dummies. But this was back in 2006, 2007. I mean, TikTok didn't exist,
Right.
Instagram didn't exist. There really wasn't a lot out there at the time. Um, so I just started creating my own. I got a file folder and I started like tearing out sheets from magazines. If they had a blurb about, um, like maybe it was just one quote on boundaries, and I just started gathering up all of this boundary wisdom. Um, as time went on, courses became available. I was taking courses. I read every book on the subject that I can get my hands on. And over a period of almost 10 years, that folder turned into a really big box of notes. So in 2016, I started organizing it and finally got it into something that I could understand. And then I realized that maybe it might be helpful for other people too. And then eventually turned it into an online self-study course. Um,
Wow.
and it's no coincidence that it really focuses on, you know, boundaries for people pleasers and for controllers, just because that was the healing journey that I needed to take. And I'm so glad I took it, because it led me right here to you and your beautiful listeners. So thank you for
Wow.
asking. I appreciate that.
Amazing. Amazing. And you're hoping to share the course with any listener who may want it.
Hmm.
What do they need to do to acquire access to your course?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited about this. I'm going to do things a little differently than we did last time. I've opened up 20 seats, and all your listeners have to do, if that's something that they would like to take this course, and it is evergreen, is just reach out to me by email. I want you to say hi. Tell me that you're one of Marissa's people, that you heard me on the podcast, or saw me if you're a viewer. And you can do that just by going to Kelli, that's Kelli with an I, Kelli at kelliyounglove.com. And will you have that over in show notes, Marissa? Oh, perfect. Great. So that'll be really, really easy. And it's, first come, first serve, but I think that there's enough there that, depending on, I don't know, maybe if this is 2 years in the future, I'm not sure, but reach out and say hi anyway.
Yeah, wherever you are in 2026.
Exactly.
Okay, so I will put a link to that in the show notes, Kelli at kelliyounglove.com, to get
Thank you.
access
Yeah,
to
thank
Kelli's
you.
course. And yeah, thank you so much for offering that and for being here again. Um, if people are interested to, in addition to emailing you, just find out more about you, where can they go?
Oh, I would love that too, just to come by my website and take a look. So I'm at Kelly, and again, that's Kelly with an I, kellyyounglove.com. That's me.
Okay, I will add that to the show notes as well. So, yeah, thank you for being here. And thank you, dear listener, for listening. And I will see you next week.
Thanks again, Marissa. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye. Hey, girl, it's Marissa again. I'm not like a regular podcaster, I'm a cool podcaster, right? Thank you for listening and staying till the end. You can find me on Instagram at Therapy with Marissa. Email me, Marissa at codependummy.com. Check out codependummy.com for more information on the show. And baby girl, a subscribe, rating, and review would be much appreciated. Till next time, I want you to remember, if you are feeling unseen, I see you. If you are feeling unheard, I hear you. And if you think that you don't matter, know that you matter to me. I want you to go out there so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. And now, the disclaimer. Girl, this is not therapy and I am not your therapist. This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, publisher, or guests are rendering any legal, clinical, or other professional service. If you want or need a professional, please find one.